folks. My name is Gene Tiberio, and I'd like to welcome you to Healing Outside the Box. This is episode 264, and I'm calling it Cooking as a Mindfulness Exercise. Now, I read in a recent journal article 2 months ago from the Journal of the American Medical Association that cooking at home not only saves money, but significantly improves your chance of success for losing weight, lowering cholesterol, sodium, blood sugar, and even improving moods. I'll give you a link in the show notes for that journal article. Now, it may seem obvious to most of us, but what this article proves is that nutrition programs like the Healthy Incentives Program, or HIP, which provides $40 of completely free produce every month to food stamps or SNAP recipients, will result in improved nutrition intake and health outcomes. And what is also obvious is that lowering rates of heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, and obesity will save the government billions of dollars in healthcare costs. But what is really obvious to most of us, including myself, is that we should do this because it is the humane thing to do. Here is a direct quote from the Journal of the American Medical Association article. Quote, "With 20 minutes per day of cooking time and $400 per month of SNAP benefits, the meal plans of the participants showed that 20% of meals were home cooked. With 60 minutes per day of cooking time and the same $400 per month of SNAP benefits, 52.7% of meals were cooked at home." End quote. Okay, further down, here's another quote. "In this decision analytical model, meal preparation time was associated with the ability of SNAP recipient families to consume nutritious meals, suggesting that increased funding alone may not be sufficient for improving the nutritional profiles of SNAP recipients. Given the U.S. food supply, governmental interventions that provide the equivalence in increased time availability to achieve nutritious meals may be needed." End quote. So they're saying that programs that help people devote more time to home cooking will work much better than just the funding alone. But here's where the but comes in. People have a lot of balls to juggle in the air in these modern times. We often feel that we don't have the time to shop and cook from scratch with our 3 kids, 2 jobs, and a dog to walk when we get home from work. I am out of breath just saying all those words. So I thought I would put together a multi-episode series about how we can make this happen. Now, I thought about calling this episode Other Things, but why not just describe where I'm about to take it? And where I'm taking it is nowhere in particular, because the place to find your inner peace and contentment is exactly where you are right now. This mindfulness guy named Jon Kabat-Zinn, who studied Buddhism, wrote a book in 1994 and called it "Wherever You Go, There You Are," which is one of my favorite book titles. So, this episode is about mindfulness and how we can make eating healthy food a pleasurable experience. So what's all this mindfulness business about anyway? Mindfulness is generally defined pretty much as you might guess. It's having a total focus on your thoughts, emotions, and your sensations in the present moment. Mindfulness practice has spread widely in this country over the past 3 decades. Now there are schools that teach courses on it. There are mindfulness CDs that you can buy, and there is an increased attention on Buddhism in this country. I think people practice this type of meditation now because it seems to help with our daily chronic stress. We in the nutrition biz have known for a long time that people who meditate also happen to eat healthier in general. They would argue that putting healthy food in our bodies is a high priority in terms of overall health and specific things like using antioxidants to boost our immune system. Now, they're not denying that the dopamine rush when we eat a donut exists. They just weigh the benefits of feeling healthy against the feeling of that dopamine rush. Feeling like we're healthy and doing everything we can to keep ourselves healthy will more often than not win that battle. I'm going to take a leap of faith here and say that mindfulness meditation is popular more than likely because it works. I personally think we need something in our society to help us with our everyday stresses, and maybe to teach us about judging behavior, and that includes ourselves and others. The definition of mindfulness in psychology today goes something like this. Mindfulness is a state of active, open attention on the present. That was a quote. When you're mindful, you observe your thoughts and feelings from a distance without judging them, either good or bad. Instead of letting life pass you by, mindfulness means living in the moment and awakening to experience. Shakespeare's opinion on the subject may go something like this. Quote, "Things are neither good nor bad. 'Tis thinking makes it so." End quote. Now, I first heard about mindfulness meditation when I learned about Jon Kabat-Zinn, about 30 years ago. John was originally introduced to this meditation by a Zen missionary who spoke at MIT while John was a student there. John earned a PhD and became professor at UMass Medical School. He studied Buddhism, and in 1979, he founded the Stress Reduction Clinic at UMass Medical School, which incorporated mindfulness meditation as part of a greater stress reduction program. One of his better-known mindfulness exercises is to slowly eat a single raisin. Personally, I'd rather do this with something like soup, which has complex flavors and different textures, but I'll leave that up to you. Basically, the exercise goes something like this. First, sniff the food and ask yourself if it has a particular aroma. Then take one bite or sip from the food you've chosen. Notice the texture on your tongue. How would you describe it? Is it creamy? Is it crunchy? Is it warm or cool? Next, notice the flavor. Describe the flavor. What herbs or spices are you picking up? Is it too much, too little, or just right? What do you like about this food the most? Do you like the spiciness, the crunchiness, the creaminess? Now pause and think, does this remind you of your childhood or a favorite restaurant? I imagine you're getting the idea. The exercise is to train you to focus on what you're doing at the exact moment you're doing it. In this case, taking a bite of food. With food, it's easier to train ourselves to focus because we usually have some sort of gut reaction to the first bite of food that we take, especially if the food is new to us. At the time I was training to be a health and wellness coach, we had an entire lecture on mindfulness, and it was really interesting. But I also practiced mindful eating in a nutrition course. I also listened to a lecture by Jon Kabat-Zinn. Here are the tips that he suggests. Number 1, try to be more aware of each bite you take, especially the first few bites. Ask yourself a few questions until the questions pop into your head naturally. Number 2, pace yourself and try to eat without distraction. This can help you to place more focus on the quality of the food. And the quality of the food may naturally become more important. In other words, picking up on texture and flavors that you enjoy. It will also help you to control the quantity of food you're eating by paying more attention to it. Number 3, if you're having a particularly stressful day, trying to find another source that you can focus your attention to may help calm yourself. In other words, your attention will then be focused on what you're doing and why you're doing it. Sometimes when you pay attention, it may dawn on you that your tone of voice has changed. If you pay attention to the food when you sit down to eat, then you can pay attention to what you're eating. So your attention is focused on eating delicious food and not what you're stressing about. Number 4, think about how the ingredients in this particular dish are nourishing your body. We tend to think about foods as either good or bad, when in fact, any particular food is neither good or bad. You're nourishing yourself with food, and that's a good thing, as Martha Stewart would say. They often look at mindfulness in terms of the 3 Ps: pause, presence, and proceed. Now, I'm not normally a fan of 3 Ps or 4 Qs or whatever, but if it helps you to remember, then it's fine. Number 1, pause. Stop and take a deep breath. Ignore your wandering thoughts for a moment. The second P is presence. Think about where you are and take notice of your feelings in the present moment. Pay attention to your body sensations and try to describe your emotions. The third is proceed. Try to respond to your environment in a positive way and without judgment. Try to exercise compassion in addressing whatever needs attention. Now, all of this is obviously not an easy thing to do at times, but like anything else, if you practice it, you'll get better at it. Now, if you'd like to play along with me and work on a mindfulness exercise, you're welcome to do the following. Make coconut chicken curry from scratch. Now, you might be thinking, oh my God, Jean, I can't make a complicated Indian dish from scratch. If you feel more comfortable with something else, you can pick any recipe you like. I recommend a recipe that has what we call aromatics, lots of onion and garlic, herbs and spices. This whole exercise is about getting the most out of your preferences, both in restaurants and food made at home, so you can get that, oh wow, this is delicious feeling at home with what you've made. So feel free to use your own recipe. This mindfulness exercise will help you to focus and get positive energy by using your senses and your hands to make something delicious. I chose coconut chicken curry because it gets me to the grocery store to buy fresh spices and organic ingredients, so I can get the most out of the experience. It's just going to taste better, hands down. Trust me on that. So, okay, if you're playing along, you may want to write down the ingredients you'll need at the grocery store. I almost always have onion, garlic, pepper, and curry powder, also basil. But I need a can of coconut milk, bay leaves, and small red-skinned potatoes. So I'll have this recipe in the show notes if you want to do this one. But again, pick any one you like. Okay, I start by adding the diced onion to a fry pan with oil and saute the onion for 3 to 5 minutes. If you're using chicken rather than chickpeas or cashews, you can add the chicken on the bone. 2 split breasts are plenty. You can stretch a chicken this way because a chicken breast will feed at least 2 people. So you brown the chicken skin down and eventually move it over to a plate. Add the garlic and saute for just another 30 seconds. At this point, you can start to smell the aromatics cooking. Stir in the curry powder and turmeric. Add a cup of water to prevent the garlic from burning. If it starts to smell bad, your garlic is burning, and add fluid. Here I just chose water. but you could add broth. Just ease up on the salt if you're adding broth. Each step of the way, stop and sniff and smell all those great aromatics cooking. Now add the vegetables and cover and simmer until the vegetables are tender. Then stir in the coconut milk, add the chicken back, and continue to simmer until the meat is thoroughly cooked. Now, I prefer the red onion or Vidalia onion because I prefer the flavor. But ask yourself if you do. Would you prefer shallots or maybe scallions? It's all totally up to you. I think it's important to get the bone-in split chicken breast because it's less processed and it will be less dry. The other flavor option is to get chicken thighs, but they have more fat than the chicken breast. If you can afford it, it would be a good idea to get organic. As you start to build the broth flavors, take a teaspoon out and sample the broth. Ask yourself all the questions I asked myself with the raisin example. There is a whole bunch of ingredients, but again, this is an optional exercise. And remember that you'll have a yummy thing at the end of all this. This stew is a favorite dish in many areas of India. It's inexpensive and has a lot of flavor. So there's a lot of ingredients, but you're basically throwing them into one large pot or Dutch oven. By the way, turmeric is now considered a therapeutic spice, and it's also in curry powder. In my opinion, it goes great in both Indian and Mexican dishes. When the simmering is done and everything's cooked, take off the cover and give it a good whiff. All the herbs and spices blended together makes it smell terrific. So that's it, folks. You just made coconut chicken curry. It's great to smell the stew at each step, and then when you sit down to eat it. What is your first reaction to the taste, the texture, the aroma? If you played along, you just made a stew that most of us would consider too complicated or difficult. And of course, the more you cook, the more you learn, and the more confident you become. So I hope you learned something about mindfulness today. As the saying goes, you can't give what you don't have. Taking care of yourself is so important, and it's a huge part of maintaining our good health and well-being. Any type of meditation, whether it be transcendental meditation or Zen-type Buddhist meditation or guided imagery, any type allows us to keep balance in our lives. As we have all learned over the past 2 years, stress can come from anywhere, and it challenges us to be more resilient. Practicing mindfulness meditation with cooking or anything else can help us handle the stress that comes our way. Preventing burnout when times are tough can put us in a better place. Then we will be better equipped to take care of our children, aging parents, or anyone else. That's all I have for you today. Be well and stay tuned next week for another episode of Healing Outside the Box.